The learning of Rambam daily. We concluded yesterday Rambam, and we don't have a day off. No days off from learning Maimonides' teachings. We begin with introduction, part 1. Rambam's introduction to the Mishnah Torah. In the name of God, Lord of the world. Okay. Then I will not be ashamed when I gaze at all of your mitzvahs from Psalms, Genesis and from Psalms. The mitzvahs given to Moshe, to Moses at Mount Sinai, were all given together with all their explanations as implied by the verse, and I will give you the tablets of stone, the Torah, and the mitzvahs. Okay. Okay. Continue. The Torah refers to the written Torah, the mitzvah to the explanation. God commanded us to fulfill the Torah according to the instructions of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is called the oral law. Okay? Got it? No, you're not in the right book. Take the other book. That's one chapter a day. Take the other book.
The mitzvah is called the oral law.
See, that has a number 3 on it.
Yeah.
That's for 3 chapter.
Oh.
Okay.
I've never heard that before.
In that context, it's called. Yeah. Okay. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Moses, our teacher, personally transcribed the entire Torah before he died. He gave a Torah scroll to each tribe and then placed another scroll in the ark as a testimonial. As it states, take the Torah scroll and place it beside the ark, and it will be there as a testimonial. The mitzvah, the explanation of the Torah, he did not transcribe. Instead, he commanded it verbally to the elders, to Joshua, and to the totality of Israel. As it states, be careful to observe everything that I prescribed to you. For this reason, it is called the oral law, because it wasn't written down initially, right? Even though the oral law was not transcribed, Moshe, our teacher, taught it in its entirety to his court of 70 elders. Elazar, Pinchas, and Yeshua received the tradition from Moshe. And in particular, Moshe transmitted the oral law to Joshua, who was the primary principal, and instructed him regarding it. Similarly, throughout the life of Joshua, taught the oral law. Many elders received the tradition from him. Eli received the tradition from the elders and from Pinchas. Samuel received it from Eli. So we have Moshe, Joshua, Yeshua, Pinchas, Eli, right? Then Samuel received the tradition from Eli and his court. David received the tradition from Samuel and his court. King David, right? Achia of Shiloh was one of those who experienced the exodus from Egypt. He was a Levite and heard the teachings of Moshe. He, however, was a low stature in Moshe's age after he received the tradition of David and his court. Elijah received the tradition of Achia of Shiloh and his court. Elisha, right? So he's going through now the tradition of who the leaders were, right? Who was the Rebbe of their generation, right? Who was the one responsible for the tradition to be taught and carried forward. Is that clear? You're going to see we're going to go through 40 generations. Okay. Elisha receives it from Elijah and his court. Yoidai the Kohen received the tradition from Elisha, and his court, and Zechariah received the tradition from Yehuda, and his court, Isaiah received the tradition from Zechariah, and his court, and Amos received the tradition from Isaiah, and his court, Isaiah received the tradition from Amos, and his court, Micha received the tradition from Isaiah, and his court, Yoel received the tradition from Micha, and his court, Nahum received the tradition from Yoel, and his court, Chavkul received the tradition from Nahum, and his court, Zephaniah received the tradition from Chavkul, and his court. Jeremiah received the tradition from Zephaniah and his court. Baruch ben Neriah received the tradition from Jeremiah and his court. Ezra was who? Ezra was the one who led the Jews from Babylon for the Second Commonwealth in the year now we're in the year about 400 or so before the Common Era, right? So Ezra and his court received from Baruch and his court. The members of Ezra's court are referred to the Anshe Knesset Zogdeh, the men of the Great Assembly. They include Chagia, Zechariah, Malachi, Daniel the prophet, right? Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Nehemiah ben Chalkiah, Mordechai, the linguist, right? And Zerubbabel and many others, 120 elders in all. Okay. 1 second. The last surviving member of the group was Shimon the Just, Shimon HaTzadik, right? If you recall in Pirkei Avos, he is the first one that's quoted in Pirkei Avos, in the Ethics of Our Fathers. And he's included 120, right? He was, the last surviving member is Shimon of the Just, HaTzadik, and he was included in the 120 elders and received the oral law from all of them. He serves the high priest after Ezra. Okay, then we continue. And Tidgias of Seichei, and his court received the tradition from Shimon the Just in his court. Yosef ben Yezer of Treda and Yosef ben Yochanan of Jerusalem, their court received the tradition from Tidgias in their court. Yeshua ben Parachia and Itai ben Arbeli, and their court received the tradition from Yosef ben Yezer and Yosef ben Yochanan of their court. Yehuda ben Teba and Shimon ben Shatach, and their court received the tradition from Yeshua ben Parachia and Itai ben Arbel and their court. Shemaiah and Naphtalion were righteous converts, and their courts received the tradition from Yehuda and Shimon of their court. And Hillel and Shammai, this is now right by the Common Era. This is right before the Common Era, because Hillel passed away in the year 8 of the Common Era. So this is, before the Common Era, the year 0, right? Right before it, right? There's no AD. There's no such thing as AD for us. Hillel and Shammai, and their court received the tradition of Shmaya and Ravtan, their court. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Shimon, the son of Hillel the elder, received the tradition from Hillel and Shammai in their courts. Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was the leader of the Jewish people in Jerusalem when it was destroyed in the year 69 by the Romans. Right? So that's where we're holding right now. So you see the connection from generation after generation. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 students who were great sages and received the tradition from him. They were Rabbi Elazar the Great, Yehoshua, Rabbi Yossi the priest, the Kohen, and Rabbi Shimon ben Natanel, and Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch. Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef received from Elazar the Great. That's the famous Rabbi Akiva. Yosef, his father, was a righteous convert. Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Meir, the son of righteous converts, received the tradition from Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Meir and his colleagues received the tradition from Rabbi Ishmael. Colleagues of Rabbi Meir include Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Nehemiah, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, Rabbi Yochanan the shoemaker, Shimon ben Azai, and Rabbi Hanani ben Traja. Some of Rabbi Akiva's colleagues also received their tradition from Elazar the Great. Rabbi Akiva's colleagues include Rabbi Tarfon, teacher of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and Rabbi Yosef ben Elazar ben Yochanan ben Nuri. Rabbi Gamliel, the elder, received the Jewish from Rabbi Shimon, his father, the son of Hillel, the elder. So Rabbi Gamliel is the grandson of Hillel, Hillel who passed away in the year 8, remember. Rabbi Shimon, his son, received the tradition from him, Rabbi Gamliel, from his son. His son received the tradition from him and Rabbi Shimon. His son received the tradition from him. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon, referred to Rabbi Yehuda Kodesh. So Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon is the son of Rabbi Gamliel. And they received, right, from Hillel. So now he is called Rabbi Yehuda Kodesh, the saintly teacher. He received the tradition from his father, Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, and from Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, Rabbi Shimon ben, and his colleagues. Rabbi Yehuda Kodesh, he composed the Mishnah. Now, this is the first time something is written down. Is that clear? This is the first time anything of the oral tradition was written down. It's in the Mishnah. Right? Today we have 6 tractates of the Mishnah. This is in the 2nd century now. This is in the 2nd century. Okay? No one had composed a text for the purpose of teaching the oral law in public. Instead, in each generation, the head of the court or the prophet of the generation would take notes of the teachings which he received from his masters for himself and teach them verbally in public, right? You didn't go with a book. Well, not that they had printing. I mean, they wrote it on parchment, right? But no one taught from a book. They taught verbally with the notes that they had that they took from their teacher. Well, that teacher had notes from their teacher all the way back to Moses, right? It was all verbal until this point. Similarly, according to his own potential, each person would write notes for himself of what he heard regarding the explanation of the Torah, its laws and new concepts, and were deduced in each generation concerning the laws that were not communicated by the oral tradition, but rather deduced using one of the 13 principles of biblical exegesis and accepted by the High Court. So there's 2 things over here. There's that which you received from previous teachers, and then there was also, and that was given at Moses and Mount Sinai, but then there were principles that you use, like 2 words that are similar, and therefore there's a connection between them, or other the 13 principles that we say in the morning before we begin our prayers in the Kaddish, that how we expound upon. So those things were also that they are deduced, and that the High Court accepted them, was also part of the oral teachings. We're good so far? This situation continued until the Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He collected teachings of all the laws and all the explanation commentaries that were heard from Moshe, our teacher, which were taught by the courts in each generation concerning the entire Torah. Can let Tim in, please. From all of these, he composed the text of the Mishnah. He taught it to the sages in public and revealed it to the Jewish people, who all wrote it down. They spread it all in places so that the oral law should not be forgotten by the Jewish people, right? It was 1 second. I just stretch my legs for a second. Page? What page are we on?
148.
Thank you. I just need a stretch. Okay. Why did Rabbeinu HaKadosh make such an innovation instead of perpetuating the status quo? Because he saw that the students became fewer New difficulties consistently arising, the Roman Empire spreading itself throughout the world and becoming more powerful, and the Jewish people wandering and becoming dispersed to far ends of the world. Therefore, he composed a single text that would be available to everyone, so that it could be studied quickly and would not be forgotten. Throughout his entire life, he and his court taught the Mishnah to the masses. These are the great sages who were part of the court of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who received the tradition from him, his sons, Shimon and Gamliel, Rabbi Ephis, Rabbi Hanina ben Chama, Rabbi Chia, Rav, Rabbi Yani, Bar Kafra, Shmuel, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Isaiah. Thousands and myriads of other sages received the tradition from Rabbeinu HaKadosh together with these great sages. Even though all of the 11 sages mentioned above received the tradition from Rabbeinu HaKadosh and attended his study sessions, there are differences between them at that time. Rabbi Yochanan was lesser stature. Afterwards, he became a disciple of Rabbi Yani and received the tradition from him. Similarly, Rav received the tradition from Yani, and Shmuel received the tradition from Hanani ben Chama. Rav composed the Sifri and the Sifra and the Sifri to explain the sources of the Mishnah. Right? That's Medrash, right? This is what we call the Medrash. Sometimes Rashi brings it down. Sifri, Safra, right? So this is Rav who composed it. Reb Chia composed it to Sefta. To explain subjects discussed in the Mishnah. Rabbi Shea Bar Kafra composed Brises to explain matters discussed in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan composed the Jerusalem Talmud in Eretz Yisrael approximately 300 years after the destruction of the temple. That's about 150 years after Rabbi Yehuda, who composed the Mishnah. Among the great sages who received the tradition from Rav and Shmuel were Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda, Rav Nachman, Rav Kahana. Among the great sages who received the tradition from Rav Yochanan was Rava Bar Chana, Rav Ami, Rav Asi, Rav Dimi, and Rav Avin. Among the sages who received the tradition of Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda were Rabba and Rav Yosef. Among the sages who received the tradition of Rabba and Rav Yosef were Abaya and Rava. Both of them also received the tradition of Rav Nachman. Among the sages who received the tradition of Rava and Rav Ashi, Ravina, Bar Rav Ashi, the tradition received the tradition of Rav Ashi, his father, and from Ravina. Thus, we have 40 generations from Rav Ashi back to Moshe, our teacher of blessed memory. And I'm going to stop here because now it's just going to go back and show 40 generations. We're going to do that on your own. So Ravina, Rav Ashi, they're the ones who wrote the Gemara. The Gemara is an explanation of the Mishnah. Now, and the Gemara was written around the end of the year 400, around 490s. It was written. The Mishnah was written in the year in the end of the 2nd century, 100 something. I don't know, I forget now exactly. So it's like 300 years later, the Gemara is written down, and the Gemara is an elaboration on the Mishnah. Talmud is a compilation of Mishnah and Gemara. Mishnah, Gemara explaining the two together is the Talmud. They come in the Talmud, that's how they come together. Because the Gemara necessitates the Mishnah, because the Gemara is explaining the Mishnah. That's called Talmud. All right, folks. Great beginning. Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Thank you.